nice.
Why not?
I'd love to see that finished upstairs. It's good
Call the regular meeting of City Council, March 13th, 2017, 7 p.m. to order. Number one.
Mr. Goodell.
Here.
Mr. Van Churen.
Here.
Mrs. Wasilk.
Here.
Mr. Winarski.
Here.
Mr. Dembinski.
Here.
Mr. Miller.
Present.
Mr. Janik.
Here.
We will start with the prayer and then followed by the pledge to the flag led by Sergeant at Arms Goodell. Please bow with me. Gracious God, bless this meeting tonight. Guide our thoughts and our voices and our actions. Tonight we pray a special blessing upon those who keep our city safe. With the storm coming upon us, keep the streets, electric, police, and fire crews within the palm of your protective hand. Bless them all and bless us all. And now may the words of our mouths and the meditations of our hearts be acceptable in your sight, O Lord, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Go to item number 4, the consent agenda.
Minutes of the regular council meeting held February 27th, 2017. Minutes of the special council meeting held March 6th, 2017. Minutes of the Finance, Ordinance, Police and Fire and Technology Committee meeting held March 6th, 2017. And I need to add minutes of the executive session held March 6th, 2017.
Mr. Goodell.
I'll make motion to accept the consent agenda as read.
Mr. Miller.
Second, please.
There's a motion and a second on the floor to accept the consent agenda as read. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The consent agenda is accepted, carried unanimously. Go to item number 5, acknowledgement of the public pertaining to items on the agenda. Is there anyone who wishes to make a remark about any item pertaining to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, to item 6, ordinances and resolution, first reading. Number 6A.
An ordinance authorizing directing the Safety Service Director to purchase up to $140,000 in fiber optic cable, associated hardware and installation services through the State Cooperative Purchasing Program, or in the alternative by soliciting bids and authorizing and directing the Safety Service Director to award the contract for such work to the lowest responsive and responsible bidder and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Goodell.
Make motion to suspend council rules so item 6A may be passed on its first reading.
Mr. Winarski.
No, someone's got to comment before, or second before I can comment. I wanted to
Yeah,
comment.
yes.
Sorry, I'm going to hold.
Okay.
You're not second?
You're not going
No.
to second it?
No.
Mr. Miller.
Second the motion.
There's a motion and a second on the table to suspend council rules so that item 6A can be passed on the first reading. Mr. Winarski.
Thank you. And just refresh my memory. I thought we were going to attach the emergency to this, but I'm happy to go 3 readings.
Yeah, I can make a comment.
Yeah.
No real need to actually suspend rules. We don't have an IT position filled yet, and I'll be honest, I do not want to move forward till we have an IT professional on board and filling that department. So if you'd like to leave the emergency attached, just let it go on to the next reading. Would be my preference.
Right.
Thanks for the motion, though, Mr. Goodell.
Mr. Miller and Mr. Goodell, would you be willing to withdraw your motion and second? Mr. Miller?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Goodell?
I'd like to make a motion to take item 6A to its second reading.
All right. Mr. Dembinski.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to take item 6A to the second reading. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Van Kuren?
Yes.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Item 6A is moved to the second reading. Item 6B,
An ordinance authorizing the city of Amherst to enter into an agreement with various Lorraine County political subdivisions to extend the agreement for technical rescue response for the fire department for the years 2017 through 2021 and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Goodell.
I'd like to suspend council rules so that item 6B may be passed on its first reading.
Okay, Mr. Van Truin.
Second that.
There's a motion and a second to suspend council rules so that item 6B can be passed on the first reading. Are there any comments or questions about that? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Van Kuren?
Yes.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
And rules are suspended for item 6B. Mr. Miller.
Move to adopt.
Mr. Janik.
Second, please.
There's a motion and a second to adopt item 6B. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Van Kuren?
Yes.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
It'll be ordinance O-17-13.
Item 6C.
An ordinance repealing Amherst Codified Ordinance, Chapter 711, billiard and pool rooms and bowling alleys in its entirety.
Mr. Goodell.
I'd like to make motion to take item 6C to its second reading.
Mr. Miller.
Second, please.
There's a motion and a second to take item 6C to the second reading. Are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Van Kuren?
Yes.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
Item 6C passes on to the second reading. Item 6D.
An ordinance authorizing the Safety Service Director to enter into a contract to purchase a Duraco Durapatcher through the Ohio State Cooperative Purchasing Program for the City of Amherst Street Department and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Goodell.
I'd like to make a motion to take, suspend council rules so item 6D may be passed on its first reading.
Okay. Mr. Miller.
Second, please.
There's a motion and a second to suspend council rules so that item 6D can be passed on the first reading. Comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Van Kuren?
Yes.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
The rules are suspended. Mr. Winarski.
Motion to adopt.
Mr. Goodell.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adopt item 6D. Any comments or questions? Seeing none, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Goodell?
Yes.
Mr. Van Kuren?
Yes.
Mrs. Wasilk?
Yes.
Mr. Winarski?
Yes.
Mr. Dembinski?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Janik?
Yes.
And item 6D is adopted.
O-17-14.
Item 7, ordinances and resolutions, second reading. There are none. Item 8, ordinances and resolutions, third reading. There are none. Item 9, miscellaneous and acknowledgement of the public. Is there anyone here who wishes to speak on any item? Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Madam President. Just a couple things, and I'm sure that our Safety Service Director will be speaking on this as well, but with snow coming, please do your best to be considerate of people on the road.
give good stopping distance, and in particular, if you're gonna call emergency services, police department, they have a text service, 440-988, 4422, text them a non-emergency issue. I find them to be very reliable, and that'll allow them to deal with other emergency issues. So I hope I didn't steal your thunder, Mr. Jeffries, but I do want to make sure that it gets out there that we need to make sure we keep our sidewalks clear. If we get 2 inches of snow, you got to get off the, don't park on the street, get off the street. So outside of that, be safe, and hopefully we get through this huge storm that hasn't even hit us yet. No more questions or comments. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you very much, Mr. Miller. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak on any subject tonight? Seeing none, we'll go on to item 10, agenda requests and committee meeting schedules.
I have none, Mr. President.
Thank you. There is nothing for finance. Building and lands, Mr. Janik.
No items, Madam President. Please cancel.
Streets, Mr. Dembinski.
Nothing at this time, Madam President. Please cancel.
Community Development, Mr. Goodell.
Nothing at this time, Madam President, please cancel.
Executive, Mr. Van Truen.
Cancel, please.
Ordinance, Mr. Miller.
No items, please cancel.
Utilities, Mr. Janik.
No items, please cancel.
Recycle, Mr. Miller.
Keep recycling. No items, please cancel.
Technology, Mr. Dembinski.
Nothing at this time, Madam President. Please cancel.
Police and Fire, Mr. Winarski.
Nothing at this time, Madam President.
Annexation, Mr. Miller.
No items, please cancel.
That concludes the agenda requests and committee meeting schedules. The next item is number 11, reports of the administration. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Kukuka?
Yeah, I just wanted to let council know that a few weeks back, we were contacted by the state auditor's office that we were selected to have our police and fire pension fund audited. It was just a cursory audit that they came in. They did look at our fund for the police and fire pension fund. It was actually kind of funny because since our fire department is part-time, none of them really have any pension to look at, so it was really just the chiefs and a couple other that were holdovers from that fund. Most of them are either PERS or Social Security. So it was a clean audit, no problems. The mayor and I signed off on a report that was sent down to Columbus. And also the February reports have been distributed to council. End of report.
Thank you. Mr. Ramsey?
Thank you. Our February reports have been distributed as well. I did want to bring council up to speed. Last week I met with our rep from Meter, her name is Eileen. You may have received like an email from the treasurer's office that contains our year report. I tend to have a yearly review, and I think I may have given you guys an actual physical copy of this last year. If you haven't gotten it, you should get it sometime in your email. And I'll just give you kind of the bottom line that kind of, it's a lot of information, and feel free to look through it. It'll tell you about trends and investment trends and things like that. And lots of really, really good information. But to let you know how our portfolio is doing, we're projected this year to earn $165,697 on our investments, and it costs us roughly $11,635 to do that. So we're doing quite well in terms of this plan of investing, kind of metered what we brought, a few years back. So far so good. Look through it and let me know if you guys have any questions next time we see each other. Just that's that. Oh, also one more thing is they had suggested that I take a course to get certified for commercial paper, which it's really not all that difficult to do apparently. And I'm planning on doing that, which might give us some additional opportunities to investment-wise. So, end of my report.
Thank you. Mr. Pecora?
No report, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Jeffries?
I think, Mr. Miller, thank you. You've covered a lot of things I might have spoke about, but I appreciate that. Citizens appreciate that too. So be safe tonight, folks, and tomorrow for the snowstorm. And a report, Mayor.
Thank you. Two things with the good weather we've had in the past, we're making headway on our, picking our sidewalks that might need improved, so we're getting close to having a partial list for council. I think it's gonna be a good idea to maybe break that up into 2 groups this year. That way we can get a list to council sooner than we would if we did our complete scope. So council should be looking for that, I would say, within the month. And want to talk a little bit about our meter reading system. We've got the AMI meter system coming. It's not going to be here for months yet, and we found some improvements that we could be making with the current way we're reading meters and our current meter readers. So we actually had our first meeting today with the readers, and we're reorganizing. So even though it's a short period of time till we hopefully get this AMI system, we're still looking at ways of improving the way we do things manually at this point. So the rest of the summer, until we get that, should be good for the city and for the residents. So with that, end of report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Janik.
Move to accept the reports of the administration and treasurer.
Thank you. Mr. Goodell.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to accept the reports of the administration. All those in, Mr.
No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. The reports of the administration are accepted. Item 12, acceptance of the reports from the auditor and treasurer. Mr. Miller.
Move to accept those reports.
Thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Winarski.
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second to accept the reports from the auditor and the treasurer. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Motion is carried. The reports of the auditor and treasurer are accepted. Mr. Miller.
Move to adjourn.
Thank you. Mr. Goodell.
Second.
There's a motion and a second to adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. We are adjourned at 7:20 p.m. Thank you.